Okay, this video is to look at the differences between using 3D World HUD Manager and using Billboards, essentially. Here we have three NPCs, I'm calling these cubes with noses, that all have numbers spawning on them and their range. This is kind of using a few of the features of Display Manager. What I want to do for an example is turn a couple of them off, take Roger. Now the numbers really do need the pop-up launchers need to have a Display Manager, but some of the other stuff, the targets mainly, they cannot be used as targets, but they spawn kind of static canvases like this one. So you got the text hi, I'm Roger. There's a lot of features being used there. There's the range, you got the value bars are changing. The value bars are changing, but you're not seeing the damage numbers because I switched those off. Now, if I was to copy one of the other ones, because they're the same but in a different location. So let's take this guy and actually remove everything that is linked to Display Manager. He's still got his movement, but his target initializer and his pop-up launchers are removed. What you can now do, well, let's have a look. You should just have a cube moving around now without any issues. This guy, so we've created, Roger has now got no canvas. He has no reference to a target or a pop-up launcher. So he's not spawning anything onto the canvas in Display Manager. Just this lone cube. Now, the widgets can be used outside of the Display Manager system, in so much as this health bar widget, which has the two value bars and a single widget, UI widget, which contains references to the text elements that you want to manipulate, the images, value bars. This data becomes kind of irrelevant, actually. That's to do with this scaling as used and off screen as used by Display Manager, but everything else will be used. So if I added it to this guy who's not got a target or pop-up launcher, and I unpack completely. Okay, so we've got UI now. We now have his UI widget, which we should be able to see. A couple of things we need to do. We need to set it to world space, the canvas. So see the screen space overlay has to become world space. A world space with no specified camera. So we need to add the camera. Okay, so it's got the main camera. It has a UI widget. It's also best to zero this. Okay, now we should be able to see what we're kind of looking at. Let's zoom in. So now we've got this cube with this Display Manager. Lift it up a bit. Oh, sorry, not the cube. Lift up the just the canvas panel. So that it's above the cube. Okay, so now we have a UI widget. We can reference all of these, and we do reference these if we add the widget or the value bar to here. So we just add the whole widget to the pop-up test script, just a demo test script. It's still got the movement. So now what this should do is one of the value bars of the widget, the first value bar. What did we forget to do? We forgot to, can you see, yeah, the top value bar is working, but we forgot to add what will make it a billboard. Is it's just really simple script, billboard script, that will look at, make it look to what in the direction of the camera. Okay, so that's a basic billboard. So it's not quite got the offset we're using. It's not bad though. I think maybe I left a Z on it. Okay, so that's how a widget looks like. Well, just a billboard. Hello, I'm text, just a billboard. It doesn't have the features like the range isn't populating. It hasn't applied a target initializer to set its name or the shape of this. So there it is. Now, what you might notice, the scaling is actually quite similar. If you move in, whoops. Well, actually, seeing as it's becoming a problem, what you might notice is the occlusion. One of the big features, actually, of Display Manager can be that the occlusion on it will work. So, if we're in the occlusion zone above the, can you see us? It's really hard to control a billboard's occlusion. So it's well worth a mention. I don't think Roger's the best guy. Where he started, I actually want him to start quite a way back from that wall to demonstrate. Can you see the transparent wall in the middle? Let's move back there. Oh, actually not. Let's move his cube, the whole cube, David. Clone here. Right, so now you'll see he'll be behind this wall, and if the camera is above the blue zone, then that will be occluded. Now, that's a major issue with using the billboards. It's good and it's bad, but they're occluded automatically. So the cube is not occluded. If I had dynamic occlusion on, the cube is. You can still see his nose. But that's the occlusion. But the UI always is occluded if there's very little control over a billboard's occlusion. I hope that's quite obvious. Whereas with a display manager on it, I can make the cube. It's the other side of the wall, isn't it? There we go. I can make the cube disappear with its dynamic occlusion. Again, it's kind of just going over and backwards and forwards on the wall. Let's have a look at where that starts. So this is looking at the display manager one again. We can see that it's not occluding the UI at all unless you want it to. So we've got the dynamic occlusion works on the cube. Unless it's a hide if invisible. So we switch that on and you can occlude the UI or it doesn't, you know. And that's based on this setting here. Okay, so you've got total control over that, which is a benefit. There is one thing a billboard can do that it doesn't. The billboard puts them in a space where if you had them both on the camera and it wasn't occluded, if I put this guy back here, so they're both the same side of the wall, you'll be able to see this better. you'll line up the camera so that there's just one thing that Billboards can do. Actually, if I take the camera off the page, it will stop occluding. Take it off the yellow area. Can you see that cube actually moves in front of Hello I'm Text's UI when they're in the same alignment? Okay, the cube can go in front of a billboard. That won't actually happen with Display Manager because it's all setting to one canvas in front of everything. You see the cube is now behind. So if you've got a visible object, its UI element, the canvas with the widget on it, will come to the front of the screen, kind of always. You can see that the billboard's a bit wobbly there for whatever reason also. But it will always come to the front, and I think most games actually do this that I've looked at. You know, if you want to see the UI marker or whatever for an object, it will come to the front, it'll be on the front of the screen. You know, it's more likely that you would just use the occlusion. So if you can't see the object and you don't want to show occluded objects health bar or whatever, it would switch itself off. Using this kind of thing. Actually, it's a bit painful sometimes like this. So you would just totally switch it off. But if it is visible, or you don't want to hide it if invisible, then it would just come to the front of the screen. Okay. Right. So also the other thing I want to look at is scaling. You can see they're quite similar. You zoom in on this, you zoom out, it scales away like that. And it's the same with the Display Manager one. You zoom, it's kind of been rigged to do that via this actually on the widget for the panel fade dual. There's the scaling data. Now this is the scaling data on the top right. It's using the basic distance algorithm. If it didn't use any scaling, if it didn't use fade curve or basic distance algorithm, kind of mimics exactly what you get in a billboard. It's just very similar to what an object is. It's just a kind of distance division. The only things you want to change on this is when you got them zoomed out to the same amount. If you want it to be exactly the same, this number here will change the sizing at whatever distance. So you kind of set that. It's a bit to do with the range as well. It's good that you got a range on this. Right, it's kind of like the number that you want to set it to fill the screen kind of thing, or whatever its original size was. You see the range on it there, it's about that big at 500 meters. Now, if I switch it back down to 200 meters, it will be that full screen size based on its original size of the canvas. It's kind of full screen at about 200 meters. So it's a little to do with the distance at which you want it to fill the screen, or whatever you want it to be size wise. But yeah, these two are quite lined up at 200 meters. It's just given the original canvas size, and otherwise they will perform very similarly with that basic distance. It'd be very similar to having a billboard. In fact, what you can also do is the fade curve. Can you see it actually blinks out of existence? Right, that's to do with the fade curve's fade range. Beyond 1,000 meters, it will become nearly invisible because this fade will go to maximum fade 1. Let's set it to something lower, like 9. Okay, so it never quite blinks out. That's its maximum distance. At 1,000 it stops fading. And it comes in. That's just a different way of doing it. You know, you can set all these kind of different, anything you want using these. The fade you can set up really esoteric kind of, I could create weird patterns of how it behaves at certain ranges. You can get a lot more control of how you want it to work using the combination of the fade curve over its fade range. There's also a maximum visible range allowed. So let's have it disappear at 2,000. So it's below 2,000 meters away at the moment. So small you can't read that. There it disappears. So that's like the visual scaling max visible range. So you can have things just disappear at a certain range, whatever range you want, or zero, and it will never do that. It will just use the fade curve. So you can apply both if you want. Not sure what you're going to be gaining. It's going to be really small, isn't it? Unless we made this a longer number. So now you have a very similar algorithm. It will go. What it's good for, the basic distance, you can get that real in your face. If you want your value bars to fill up the whole screen when you're very close to something, you can use that. Without that, it seems to be still doing it in this case, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, you can actually, and performance-wise, also, you probably just want to use a fade curve. If you can design the fade curve to do everything you want, then you're best using a fade curve. It just does exist that you can use both at the same time, and it's using the fade curve on top of the basic distance algo. Make it bigger in this case. Yeah, so you can create some very different kind of scaling effects, whatever kind of curves you want to use. So some different curves might look like. It's going to 0 again, over 1,000, over 2,000. Some slightly different. It's got scaling smoothing on as well, which kind of smooths that out a bit. That's for when you go off screen, because I think it's got off screen switched on. So it would have an off-screen indicator in it, and it's also got its smoothing on. So the scale kind of smoothly adjusts a bit more. If I switch that off, it won't look much different, actually, I think, in this case. Oh, what's that going to be? You've got off screen on. I could have just switched off screen off, actually. I've done that. So that's without smooth scaling. It's actually a bit more snappy without it, but it's very snappy when it goes off screen. So that's what it exists. It's more to change the off screen behavior. So that's without this smooth scaling. Yeah, so you've got some options there that you can use with the scaling data. Okay, that's all I wanted to show for now. Thanks for watching. Bye.